Hey everyone. So, if you guys haven't heard, oh, my hair looks terrible. Adnan Syed, I think I'm saying it right. Adnan Syed was released from prison today. Or I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but if anyone hasn't been following, there was a podcast called Serial a couple years ago. Probably like 2016. I had to re-go over it because it's been a while. But hey, Princess Megan Elton, Adnan Syed. Okay, I've been listening to the podcast again today just to but I wasn't even paying attention to if I was saying it right. But so in a nutshell, he was accused of killing his ex-girlfriend Hai Min Lee, and was sentenced to life in prison with 30 years. They didn't really have much evidence on him besides this guy Jay's testimony and some phone calls and things like that. Oh my gosh, he's so loud. Sorry. He's trying out a new game. His friend gave him keys for Devil. If you're in here, it's your fault. And they're being loud. Hey, Jeremiah. Hey, Chris Land. So, in 1999, right? Yeah. He was in 1999, she was murdered. She was strangled and buried in a shallow grave at this park called, it's technically spelled Leakin Park, but everyone calls it Lincoln Park. Yeah, I agree. The Rockaways. I mean, I really I'm a sucker for the cases with where cops just screw it up and innocent people get freed, or even if he's not innocent, that it's still not I believe in a fair trial and having real evidence before you can convict somebody. And I really don't think there was enough evidence to personally convict this guy, so I do agree with him getting out. And I definitely think there could have been some other. I personally think, if you've been following it, I personally think the guy Jay is so shady. Hey, Jen. Hey, Crystalline. If I'm missing anyone, sorry. Let me see. All right, good. I think I got it wrong. So, I'll read a summary real quick, and then I'll get a little deeper into it. Or I could probably do both at the same time. So, Hey Min Lee. I keep saying it hi. Hey Min Lee. She was a Korean. Hold on, let me move this so it's in front of my face and I'm not looking up. She was a Korean-American high school student who was last seen alive on January 13th, 1999 in Baltimore County, Maryland. Her body was found 4 weeks later in Lincoln Park. She had been killed by manual strangulation. Lee's ex-boyfriend, Adnan Syed, was initially convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years. In 2014, the podcast Serial covered the killing, which brought renewed attention to the case. In 2016, Judge Martin P. Welch vacated Syed's conviction and ordered a new trial. The decision was upheld by Maryland Court of Special Appeals in 2018, but overturned by the Maryland Court of Appeals in 2019. Following an investigation by prosecutors that uncovered new evidence, a judge again vacated Syed's conviction in September 2022. On October 11th, 2022, prosecutors announced that the charges against Syed had been dropped. So the charges have been dropped, hey Molson Man, because they push testing a lot DNA evidence, and his DNA was not on I think it was a shoe. I think they said his DNA was not on there. And they also, there was 2 suspects that were never named. And hold on. They're not saying who they are, but basically the prosecution, if there's any suspects, they're supposed to let the defense know if they have any other suspects. And the defense is claiming that the prosecution withheld these two suspects. I believe the two suspects are, from what I've been reading on Reddit, are this guy named Bilal Ahmed and Alonzo Sellers. Bilal, I believe, is what's his Adnan's mosque mentor, I think. He was convicted of some crimes later on, but they weren't like at the time. And then there was another guy, this guy Alonzo Sellers, who was exposing himself to women in cars. But they said something about, with the two suspects together, that they don't know if they worked like together or separate. So I don't know how they came up with these two suspects. I don't know if they are the actual two suspects, but this is what I hear. So Hae Min Lee was born in South Korea. She immigrated with her mother, Yoon Kim, and her brother, Young Lee, to the United States in 1992 to live with her grandparents. She attended the magnet program at Woodlawn High School near Baltimore, Maryland. She was an athlete who played lacrosse and field hockey. So her family reported her missing because she didn't pick her younger cousin up from daycare around 3:15. But people did see her leaving school that day, they saw her leaving campus. Now, there was a woman at the end of the day who saw her at her car, and she claimed that she didn't see him with her. Like, he wasn't at hold on one second. Adnan wasn't bleh. She said that she didn't see Adnan with her, but people have claimed that day they heard Adnan ask her for a ride home, but she said she couldn't because she had other things to do. So Adnan and Hae had like a relationship they could relate to. Hey, Peppermint Schmoka, because they were both immigrants, and because they were immigrants, their families were really strict on relationships. They had to keep their relationship private. I mean, I believe Adnan wasn't even allowed to go to, why does it look so bright? Wasn't even allowed to go to school dances. They're very strict about academics and things like that. I know he was at a dance one time and his parents showed up and were angry because he was at the dance. So, and for, I think, his prom, he was voted prom king, and he even hid his tux and his crown or whatever in the basement from his mom, so she wouldn't see him. So they basically had to hide their relationship, and they would call each other on the phone at night. But what they would do so they wouldn't get in trouble is hey, that girl. One of them would page the other one, and then that person who they paged would call an 800 weather number or something, and then say Adnan paged her, he would call, and then it would go through a call waiting, and that way the phone wouldn't ring, so their parents didn't know. So they were Adnan. I keep saying his name wrong. Had to be super careful about it. All right, so on April 1st, 1988, or 1998, sorry, I wrote that wrong. They started dating. She had a diary where she would write mainly about Adnan. Him and his friends had a competition that who could ask the prettiest girl to the prom. And somebody said he should ask Hae, and he asked Hae. And she wrote in her diary, "I swear he's the sweetest guy. He was prom prince and Stephanie was prom princess, and they were supposed to dance together to my song, Casey and JoJo, all my life. I tried to act natural and unjealous, but it kind of bothered me. 10 seconds later, Adnan danced with me instead of Stephanie. How could I not fall in love with this guy? And I gave him his first kiss on his lips." She said, "We have to keep things secret, sigh, but love conquers all." Aisha Pittman was Hi's best friend. She said she was super bubbly about him. She would show her notes that he would leave her. She would lie to her parents and say that she was at Aisha's house. Oh, hey, K-pop. That she was at Aisha's house, and but she'd really be going to hang with Adnan. So if a girl, so his parents were strict too. Like if a girl gave him a ride home, she would have to drop him off down the block. Or if he gave a girl a ride home, he would have to make sure there was no like long hairs in his car. His mom would like pick up the phone and see who he's talking to, stuff like that. So the state, when they went to trial, the state tried to say that he was like controlling, which some of his friends did agree, and others just said it was like normal, teenage relationship, like where, I guess maybe because they didn't see each other all the time, they had to like hide it that they were, always paging each other and calling each other. So Aisha says their relationship was probably normal, and she agreed that like her thoughts about him could be skewed because of everything that went on. Like it was so long ago that in her mind she like might look at him negatively because she thought that he was the one who killed her. Hey, Randy man. Let me think. Yeah. So on July 16th, Adnan. Oh, this was in her diary. She wrote in her diary. This was just an instance where they tried to say he was controlling and that he would show up at her friend's house and things like that. And the only thing they really found in her diary that like stated that was the one time she wrote July 16th, Adnan dropped by Aisha's with carrot cake. And then they said any other time it was written, it was kind of like a tit for tat thing. Like she would write like, how dare he get mad at me for hanging out with Aisha. And it irks to know me that I'm against his rule. So she said like it bothers her to know that, hey, B. Tim, that he was against her religion. And she said he joked around and called her a devil a few times, but, he was only like kidding, but it bothered her. Hey, Thumb Thug. And then she kept crying over the phone, and Adnan told him that religion means life to him, and he fell in love with her, which is a sin, and that one day he would have to choose between her or his religion, basically. He did most of his lying to his mom. Like I said, he, hit his tux. She would even check the mileage on his car. Like she wasn't like a crazy mom, but it's just that's how they were raised. You could only really just be married. There really was no like relationships in their religion. Like where I think they were from Pakistan, and when they were from, you can only really just like marry somebody. So I think shortly after they showed up at the one dance they were at together, and they made like the state made it seem like when he killed Hay, sorry, I keep saying it wrong because the way it's spelled. When he killed Hay, that he, how can I explain this? That like he saw his parents. They were like, yeah, like when he strangled her, he saw his parents in her telling him what to do and like controlling him. And they were trying to like make it seem like he was taking his anger like on his parents out on her. But his best friend said the day that he got caught at the dance, he called his best friend, and they were literally like laughing about it and saying like, oh my God, you won't believe what happened. My parents, just showed up to the dance, and, they thought it was funny. But the way that the state made it seem like is that, he had like harbored resentment, and that she was the reason why he was getting trouble from his parents. And he had bought a cell phone right before she disappeared, which I believe was like 2 days before she disappeared. Adnan says he bought it to talk to girls, but the state says that he had bought it for his plan to kill her. he was an EMT, and he was really proud of his job, becoming an EMT. And they said because he was an EMT, he would know how to manually strangle someone. They also tried to say that his poetry was really dark, but his teacher was interviewed, and his teacher said, all the teenagers in her class, poetry was pretty dark. It's just, that's what it's like for emotional teenagers. So she's like, nothing that he said ever, stood out. Like, she didn't miss a lot of it, don't worry. So then Hay left Adnan for a guy from work named Don, who was older than her. So the way her friend Aisha describes it was that they had gone on a double date, and she thought it felt really weird to her because it was like they were young and he was an adult. Now, I don't know how much older than he was than her, which I'd love to find out, because I do think that is like a little strange. But she was 18, so I guess, hey, Irvin, it's legal, but the way Aisha at least explained it seemed a little weird to me. Like she made it sound like he was a lot older than them. I don't know how old he was, and Adnan kind of turned into like a player of sorts. He was talking to a lot of girls, but Hay was still flirting with him and calling him at the time. He had called her 3 times the night before she went missing. There was like 2 around like 11 p.m. or somewhere like 11:30, and there was one that was around 12:30. And Don had later said that Hay was at his house that night, and Hay's final journal entry said like that she was at Don's and that she's in love and that he's her soulmate. So the 2 calls where she was at Don's, I don't even know if she answered. They were like really short. And then the one at 12:30, I think, was like 5 minutes long. He said that he believes he called her to give her his new cell phone number, which she did write the number down in the top corner of her journal. So it very well could have been that. So Jay, okay, so this guy Jay was Adnan's friend. He wasn't really that close of a friend, but they knew each other for a long time, since like middle school, but they were more like acquaintances, I would say. He basically was the one who told police that Adnan had done it, and he had helped him. Jay told police that Adnan planned to make an excuse to get Hay in her car and tell her that his car broke down so he could get in her car and get a ride. So they did have first and last period together, and her friend Debbie saw her go into the car, and she was supposed to go be picking her cousin up at daycare and then going to see Don at the mall. The last person who saw Hai said they did not see Adnan anywhere near her car, and Adnan has no recollection of asking her for a ride. But this girl, Krista, and another girl, Becca, said if they do remember correctly, he did ask her for a ride, but she turned him down. But hearing Krista's interview, I mean, you got to keep an account. This was like many, many years ago. So I guess the Serial podcast was in 2016. This all happened in 1999, so they probably don't remember anything. PD Scott Adcock had called Adnan's cell phone that day, and Adnan had told the officer that he was supposed to get a ride from her, but he got held up at school and she left. And then I believe they interviewed him again later on, and Adnan said he did not ever tell the police officer because he drove his own car to school. So, like, there's no reason for him to say that. Where was I? All right, so there was the person who found her body. So her body, let me share my screen. I'll show you guys. I believe it was near the road, but so her body was at Lincoln Park. Technically Lincoln Park. They call it that. So from what I heard, they said they can see the road from where they were. So I don't know. I think it would be like around here. But her body was at this park. So like this guy said he was drinking, but it was in a park. Yeah. He was drinking Budweiser. The guy, they referred to him as Mr. S. I don't know his real name. But he was driving and drinking a Budweiser and felt like he had to pee. So he pulls over to this park and he walks about probably, I think they surveyed it out to be about 127 feet into the woods, which in the interviews it sounded like it was pretty far in. Like, why would this guy walk so far in? And then there was this like 40-foot tree that had fell over, and a 40-foot tree that had fell over, and then her body was like on the other side of the tree, but it was in a shallow grave, and you could only really see like a little bit of hair coming up. And on the Serial podcast, they said they looked at the pictures and they could hardly even see that. So they were shocked that this guy was even able to like find it. But he said that he, saw hair, and that's how he found it. The path he took to go pee really didn't lead to the log. So they were saying like, how could he have ended up there? But then the people from the podcast went out and they walked out 127 feet from the road. And they said that where they had walked out to, there wasn't a lot of foliage and you could still see the road. So his story did seem to add up a little more, that they went and checked it out themselves because he probably wasn't well hidden and wanted to walk further into the woods, so he could pee. At the crime scene, they found a liquor bottle. It was brandy. They found brandy, which they never tested. They found a rope, which I believe they never tested. They found shell casings and an unused condom. Like, it was just a condom wrapper open. And there was a condom in it, but it was unused. And Mr. S said it could be his bottles, but he's not sure. And then they started asking him what drinks that he drank, and asked if he drank brandy, and he said no. So, but he did get in trouble before this, where he was streaking and had exposed himself to a cop. And then the cop went and took his clothes, and he had, no clothes. And then he later went and filed a report saying that his clothes and his wallet and all the stuff was stolen, but really it was because he was streaking in front of a cop and exposed himself. So that's just a little bit about Mr. S. Like, I don't know if he's guilty or anything, but they just thought it was a little strange that he was able to see her and, the circumstances. But I personally don't think he's involved. I think the guy Jay's involved, which I will get to. Yes, we are behaving. All right, so I heard that Don had like scratches on him the next day, but then I heard that was just a rumor going around, so I don't know if that's true or not. They said Lincoln Park was actually a really popular spot to dump bodies, and they had found like 68 bodies in there, and maybe even more, because like a period of like 7 years was left out. So Jay, let's get back to Jay. Jay is Adnan's like acquaintance, but not really close friend. They known each other since middle school. He's friends with someone named Jen. So Jay supposedly, this is what Jen said. Jay calls her and tells him to come pick her up at the mall. And she comes and picks him up, and he says, Adnan just killed Hay, which I think is really strange because so they said initially when police interviewed Jen, she had said she knew nothing, and then she freaked out and got a lawyer and an attorney, and went back and spoke to police and then told them that Jay had called her, asked her to come pick him up, that she went to this mall. Jay got in the car and told her, hold on. All right, so Jay told Jen Adnan killed Jay. Jen goes to the police and lies to them. She thought it was possible she was about to get charged. She gets an attorney plus her mom and goes to the station and asks her where her and Jay asked where, and Jay said, should we go right now? Okay, so she was asking Jay, like, what should I do? Should we go to the police? And he said, should we go right now? So he told Jen that Adnan showed him her body and asked if he would help bury her. According to Adnan, or not Adnan, Jay, his story does change too, so it's really strange. Like, Jen said that Jay told her that he strangled Hay in a Best Buy parking lot and then opened the trunk and showed Jay her body in Hay's car. Like, she was in Hay's car. And then they at some point went and got shovels from Jay's house. They were Jay's shovels, and he went to this park that Adnan claims he never even heard of, and his friends claim that they never even heard of it. But Jay claims they both go to this park, and he helps him bury her in a 6-inch, like, small grave that they dig together, and then they dispose of these shovels in the dumpster at the mall. So when Jen picks him up at the mall, he says, Adnan killed Hay. He asked me to help, get rid of the body. And then he says, we used my shovels. So Jen takes him back to the mall and they retrieve the shovels from the dumpsters and wipe him clean, I'm pretty sure. And then she drove him to throw out his clothes and boots, I guess maybe like in another dumpster. And then when they go to pick Jay up for questioning, he works at a porn video store. And so they ask Jay, like, what happened? Jay tells them. And Jay, they say, well, where's her car? And Jay takes them to her car. So, I mean, at that point, the police didn't even know where her car was. And Jay knew where her car was. So I don't even know how there's 2 other suspects, but I don't know how this guy is not involved. Like, there's just no way to me. If he knew where the car was, he had the shovels. But part of me wonders if Adnan was even involved or if he just framed him. So apparently, Adnan was friends with Jay's girlfriend, Stephanie. And there may have been some jealousy there because Stephanie's parents liked Adnan, but they didn't really care for Jay. I don't know if there's any other connections besides that. Like, I don't know if Jay maybe had a thing for Hay or what, but I do think it's really strange that he knew where her car was. Why would they use his shovels? And then him and Jen freaked out and felt like they had to go tell the police right away. Like, it makes me wonder if, he did it and he's trying to push it off on Adnan because Adnan was his ex. I mean, that would be the perfect fall guy. And he said that when Adnan called him, he was like, hey, come pick me up. That bitch is dead or whatever. So he said that he had called him from a payphone. There's no record of a payphone ever being at the Best Buy. They looked through like old blueprints and everything. They even asked the Best Buy if they ever had a contract with a payphone company. They looked through old photos of the Best Buy around that time, and there was no payphone that they had seen. So he claims that he meets him at the Best Buy, and Jay is driving Adnan's car and Adnan is driving Hay's car. And then they go and pick up weed and then drive like across the county to go smoke weed. But then at this point, Adnan would have to be back to school for track. So there was really didn't make sense why they would drive across the whole county when you could just like pull over and smoke anywhere. So that was a little weird too. They do have a timeline. Let me pull up the timeline. Hey, Annalise. So this is Adnan's call log. He called Hay at 12:01, 12:35 the night before. He calls Jay at 10:45 a.m. He calls Jen at 12:07, 12:41. And there's 3 incoming calls, which I believe Jay said something along the lines where he left his cell phone, like Adnan had left his cell phone and things with Jay and told Jay that he would call him after he had killed Hay for him to come get him on his own cell phone. So apparently Jay was trying to make it like Adnan had bought this cell phone just for this plan, and that, he was like, look, I'm going to go kill this bitch. Here, take my phone and this, and I will call you when I'm done and you can come pick me up. So there is there is incoming call at 2:36 and 3:15. Then there's a call to Jen's home, which they said they were looking for Patrick, and they said he may have called Jen to see if Patrick was home, but Jen said they would have never called and asked where Patrick was. Let me see. I wonder, maybe he called his voicemail there. So here's Adnan's story. From 7:45 to 9:15, he had a photography class. 9:15 to 10:40, he had English class. Let me bring this up so you guys can see. 10:45 a.m., Adnan calls Jay and lends him his car. Okay, so that's the call to him at 10:45. At 10:45 to 11:15 is lunch. Oh, I like how when I click on this, it lights up. That's cool. At 11:15 to 11:30, Jay drops Adnan back off at school. So Jay borrows his car. Adnan says he didn't go shopping with Jay. So I guess Jay says they go shopping together, and he says he didn't. 11:15 to 12:50 is a free period. 12:50 to 2:15 is a psych class. 1:27 p.m. Adnan gets to psychology class late. There's a note at the top of Miss Paoletti's lesson plan for January 13th, 1999, that says Adnan Syed arrived late at 1:27. Adnan goes to Woodlawn Public Library to check his email and has conversation with Asia. Now, Asia, I forgot to talk about this girl. She supposedly is a alibi for Adnan that says she was at the library at the time Adnan was talking to him, and that is the time where Hay would have been killed. So 3:30 to 4:30, he's at track practice. So his story is that he was at the library and then he went back to school for track practice. Track coach Michael Sy testified that practice was usually from 4 to 5:30 or 6 p.m. 4:30 to 5, Jay picks Adnan up from his track practice. Adnan says since it was Ramadan, he and Jay probably went to go get something to eat after track because I believe that he had fasted for the day because of on Ramadan you have to fast, and that he was probably hungry. So Jay went to pick him up at that time, and they went to go smoke somewhere. And at 6, Adnan and Jay go to Kathy's house. 6:07 to 6:24, Officer Adcock calls Adnan looking for Hay. 7 to 8, Adnan goes home, picks up food to take to his father at the mosque. And 8 to 10 or 10:30, evening prayers at the mosque, according to Adnan's father's testimony. All right, so this is Jay's first interview. Now his interviews change. Hey, Sabrina. So his interviews change. He has different stories for different interviews. So, why is that happening? Why can't I scroll? All right, I gotta bring it out a little bit. Okay. All right, Jay's first interview. Jay, at 10:45, Jay gets a call from Adnan. 11:45 a.m. Adnan arrives at Jay's house. They go to Westview Mall, and Adnan tells Jay that he's going to kill Hay. Adnan claims this never happened, remember. The library alibi always frustrated you, like you thought he was innocent or that girl was lying. Well, now that he's been, I mean, they're still going to have a trial. Doesn't mean he didn't do it, but it means that they don't have enough to charge him with. His DNA is not there. And the person who talked about the cell phone pings actually retracted their statement and said that it's not reliable. And a couple of the suspects were exonerated from polygraph tests, which we know are not admissible in court now. So, all right. So Adnan says he never goes to the mall with him. Jay drops Adnan off at school and keeps Adnan's phone and car. 12:35. Jay goes to Jen's house and hangs out there for about 3 hours. Now, I wonder if Adnan just left his cell phone in his car. All right, so he goes to Jen's. Then Jen gets home from work Jen gets home from work at 12:45. At 3:40, Adnan calls Jay and tells Jay to meet him at a strip off Edmondson Ave. At the meeting point off Edmondson Ave, Adnan shows Jay Hay's body in the trunk of her car. Adnan and Jay ditch Hay's car at I-70 Park and Ride. Adnan and Jay smoke a blunt at Patapsco State Park. They stay there for about 30 minutes. Patapsco State Park is about a 20-minute drive from the Park and Ride from Woodlawn High School. Jay drops Adnan off at track practice and goes home at 4:30. And then Adnan calls Jay on the cell phone and asks Jay to pick him up from practice. At the trial, so we've seen that already. Jay and Adnan go to McDonald's. The police call Adnan while they're eating, looking for Hay. They leave McDonald's and go to Jay's house for a shovel and pick, according to Jay. They go get shovels from his house. Jay and Adnan return to the Park and Ride to retrieve Hay's car at 7:30. They drive around the area. Adnan is driving Hay's car. Jay is driving Adnan's car. Adnan and Jay arrive at Lincoln Park, and Adnan buries Hay's body in the woods. Jay says it takes Adnan about a half an hour. You would think in January it would be really hard to do that too. Like the ground would be frozen to bury somebody, but I mean they did, so. Adnan and Jay leave Lincoln Park and drive around some more until finally ditching Hay's car in a residential lot. Adnan throws Hay's things and the shovel into a dumpster at Westview Mall. Adnan and Jay go to 7-Eleven. Adnan drops Jay off at home. Jay tells Jen that Adnan killed Hay. Jen told detectives that she took Jay to throw his clothes out the next day. So all that whole end one, there's no specific times. So then he has a second story where things slightly change. The mall thing's still the same. He steals his car and a phone. Jay goes to Jen's house and plays video games with her brother. Jen comes home from work. Jay tells Jen about Adnan's plans to kill Hay. So Jay, I guess, tells Jen at 1:30 now that Adnan's going to kill Jay. Jay gets 3 calls from Adnan while at Jen's house, 2 on the cell phone and 1 on Jen's landline. But here's my thing too. That call could have been for him to come pick him up at school, right? Hey, Parker. Like if he had his car, then that call might have just been like, hey, dude, come get me from school, you know? And apparently he's with Jen at this time, so I don't know. Things just seem really weird for me. 3:30, Jay doesn't hear from Adnan, so he leaves Jen's house, even though Adnan supposedly called him. Adnan calls Jay when Jay is halfway home to say, come and get me. I'm at Best Buy. At 3:35, he says that. 3:40, Adnan shows Jay Hay's body in the trunk of her car at Best Buy parking lot. So now we've switched from Edmondson Ave at a strip on Edmondson Ave to Best Buy. So we changed the story. Adnan and Jay ditch Hay's car at the I-70 parking ride and head to Forest Park neighborhood looking for weed. On the way to Forest Park to buy weed, Adnan calls Nisha. The cell tower that originates this call is L651C, which doesn't cover the area where Jay says they're driving. Jay calls his friend Patrick to score some weed at like 3:59. The cell tower that originates this call is L651A, which doesn't cover the area where Jay says they're driving. So he's saying they're driving in this area, and their cell tower pings are just not lining up. Oh my gosh, he's so loud. 4:30, Adnan and Jay smoke a blunt at Papso Sake Park. Let me see if that's the same here. Yeah, pretty much. Off 5 minutes. They stay there for 20-30 minutes. Jay drops Adnan off at track practice at 5:10, which is a little later than 4:30. 5:15, Jay drives to Gilston Park to smoke a blunt by himself, then drives back to his house and then to Kathy's to smoke weed there for another 10 to 20 minutes. 5:45, Adnan calls Jay on the cell phone and asks Jay to pick him up from... He's not singing, he's laughing. He's like, I don't know what they're laughing about, but he's laughing really obnoxiously loud. I don't know what they're playing the game that Devil Eyed sent them, and they're laughing at something. Adnan calls Jay on the cell phone and asks Jay to pick him up from track practice. Jay picks Adnan up from track practice. Okay, 6:15, Jay goes to Kathy's house. Jay and Adnan go back to Kathy's house. Hey brother calls Adnan looking for Hay. Please call Adnan looking for Hay. 6:30 p.m., Jay and Adnan drive to his house to get shovels. Hold on a second. Okay. 6:55, Jay and Adnan return to the park. Yes, of course he's involved, Thumbs Like it's all his fault. I just had to yell shut up because he's so loud. I think they have like chicken zombies running at them or something, and I don't know. All right, so Adnan and Jay arrive at Lincoln Park and bury Hayes' body in the woods. And this is late for January. It's probably dark as hell too. It's 6:55 in the woods. Adnan and Jay drive around for 30 minutes until finally ditching Hayes' car in a residential lot. Adnan throws Hayes' things and the shovels into the dumpster at Westview Mall. Adnan drops Jay off at home. Then Jen picks Jay up and he tells her that Adnan killed Hay. She takes him to the F&M and he throws his clothes in a dumpster. Then they go back to the dumpster at Westview Mall and he wipes his fingerprints off of the shovels. Jen told detectives that she took Jay to throw his clothes out the next day. Jay goes to see Stephanie, then Jen and Jay go back to Kathy's for the rest of the evening until Jay goes home. I just think that it's all really weird that Jen and Jay know all of this stuff, and it's Jay's shovels. Jay gets rid of his clothes. I mean, for being someone who just was helped Adnan supposedly, he really stressed getting rid of stuff. He knew where the car was. She stressed too. She went and got a lawyer because she felt like she was going to be arrested. So Jen and Jay are a little suspect to me. If Adnan's, in my opinion, Jay has to be involved because he knew where her car was. Only somebody who was involved knows where the car was put. But I just don't know if Adnan was involved or not. But so now Jay's testimony for the second trial, I guess it differs too. Jay gets a call from Adnan, 10:45, 11. Now it changes to 11:45 to 1. Adnan arrives at Jay's house. They go to Security Square Mall for about an hour and 15 minutes. On their way in there, Adnan tells Jay he's going to kill Hay. So, first they said they went to Westview, then it changes to Security Square, and then it's Security Square later in the time frame, I guess. I guess maybe they spruce stuff up for the second trial, I don't know. At 1:05, Jay drops Adnan off at school and keeps Adnan's cell phone and car. In court, the prosecutor asked Jay to look at the 12:07 p.m. call to Jen's house. Jay says he remembers making the call while he was driving to Jen's house from Woodlawn High School. At 1:15, Jay goes to Jen's house. She's not home, but Jay and her brother play video games for about 30 minutes. At 1:45, Jay and Jen's brother go to a mall so Jay can finish his shopping. So now he goes to a mall. That's so weird. I didn't even know that. At first he said he was just at Jen's house the whole time. Now he goes to him and her brother go to the mall. Jay says Adnan called the cell phone right before he and Jen's brother left for the mall. He says Adnan was calling to see where Jay was, but he told Jay he wasn't ready to be picked up yet. After the 12:43 p.m. call, the next incoming call, hold on, I keep losing it, on the call log is at 2:36 and it lasts 5 seconds. Jay and Jen's brother return to Jen's house. Jay says Adnan called him after they got back from shopping to see if the cell phone was turned on. I mean, I would think you would remember if you went shopping with Jen's brother on that day. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know it's hard to recall what happened, like, after so much time, but, I mean, it couldn't be that long where they're, like, he was questioned by police here, where he wouldn't remember that he went to the mall. All right, so 3:45, Jay doesn't hear from Adnan, so he leaves Jen's house and goes to his friend Jeff's. So around this time, in this, like 3:45, between 1:45 and 3:45, that's when Hay was killed. And he goes to his friend Jeff's now, which he never mentions before either, which is strange. Why would you never mention going to Jeff's house? So at 3:50, Jeff wasn't home. As Jay is turning off Jeff Street, Adnan calls Jay and asks him to meet him at Best Buy. In their closing statement, the prosecution contends that this was the 2:36 p.m. incoming call, but both Jay and Jen said he left her house between 3:30 and 3:45. Adnan and Jay ditch Hay's car at the I-70 park, 3:55, Jay drives to Best Buy, where Adnan shows him Hay's body in the trunk of the car. And then 4:10, Adnan and Jay ditch Hay's car at the I-70 park and ride. 4:20, they drive towards Patrick's house to try and buy weed, but Patrick isn't home, so they head to Forest Park to buy it. In court, the prosecution asked Jay about a phone call made from Adnan's cell phone to Jen's house at 3:21. Jay testified that he was calling Jen to find out if she knew Patrick was home. That's strange, too, because at that time, Adnan wasn't with him. He had Adnan's car and phone, and he calls Jen at that time, and that's around the time where she was killed. Oh, this guy, Jay, is so sus to me. So why would he call Jen at 3:21? Jay testifies that he was calling Jen to see if Patrick is home, but the cell tower originates this call. This is hard for me to do because it keeps on. Here it is. All right. In court, the prosecution asked Jay about a phone call made from Adnan's cell phone to Jen's house at 3:21. Jay testifies that he was calling Jen to find out if she knew if Patrick was home. But the cell tower that originates this call, L651A, would not have covered the area where Jay says they were driving. Plus, by both Jay and Jen's telling, Jay hasn't left Jen's house yet at 3:21. So if he hadn't left Jen's house at 3:21, why is he calling Jen? If Jay's time estimates have been relatively on target, then his story is an hour off from the story the cell phone records tell. At 4:30, Adnan calls Nisha, and Jay talks to her briefly. All right, so they go to buy weed. They call Nisha. In court, prosecution asks Jay to identify his call to Nisha, which occurs at 3:32 on the call log. Jay says they were on Forest Park Ave at the time, which is in an area that isn't covered by... See, I feel like... So the cell towers say he was there around 3:30 again, which would be weird. At 4:46, I wonder how close Forest Park is to Lincoln Park. In court, Jay identifies these calls as occurring at 3:48 and 3:59. Jay says they were driving on Forest Park Ave at the time, which is an area that isn't covered by the cell towers that originates the call. Adnan and Jay buy weed near Forest Park Ave. Jay calls Jen to see if Kathy is home. Jay drops Adnan off for track practice. 5:15, 5:30, Jay drives to Kathy's house. 5:55, Adnan calls Jay on the cell phone and asks Jay to pick him up from track practice. 6:10, Jay picks Adnan up from track practice. 6:25, Adnan and Jay go back to Kathy's house. During this time, Jay says Adnan received 2 phone calls from Hay's family and 1 from a police officer, all looking for Hay. There are 3 incoming calls on the log at 6:07, 6:09, and 6:24 that could be these calls. Yeah, Michelle, I agree. Jay really, gives me... I don't like this guy. He's totally sketch to me. Right, Olive Juice? Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in a while. Hey, girl. Yeah, Jay is just so suspect to me. I feel like... I don't know. I wish there was more of a connection that I can put together between Jay and Hay and, why he would do it, other than Adnan was close to Jay's girlfriend and he was jealous or something. I don't know. But it's just weird to me. He has her car, he has Adnan's phone, he has Adnan's car. Adnan has I think Jay is just Jay. I wonder. I wouldn't be shocked if they found his DNA on everything. I hope they run it and see if they can. I did look up his record to see if he had any criminal history, and he doesn't, that I have found. So I will give him that. All right, so Adnan and Jay leave Kathy's and drive to Jay's house, where they get 2 shovels. Why would Jay use his own shovels to help his acquaintance, not even good friend, bury some girl? Why? I would be like, hell no, dude, go get your own shovels. This is on you. Why'd you even tell me this? This just doesn't make any sense to me, that they used his shovels and he got rid of his clothes. Come on. All right, so Adnan and Jay drive to the park and ride. Adnan gets in Hay's car and tells Jay to wait for McDonald's. Until 11 p.m., we don't have any more references. We only know the order of events. Adnan meets Jay at McDonald's. They drive around for 45 minutes and finally arrive in Lincoln Park. Jay and Adnan bury Hay in the woods. In court, Jay says that Jen called Adnan's cell phone while they were digging the hole. This call would have been the 7:09 p.m. incoming call. He also says Adnan received another phone call at 7:16 incoming call on the call log, that he spoke in Arabic during the call. The cell tower that originates these calls covers Lincoln Park. Adnan and Jay drive around a while before ditching Hay's car in a residential lot. In court, Jay identifies 2 phone calls, 8:04 p.m. and 8:05, that he made to Jen's pager while he and Adnan were on the way to Westview Mall. I think him and Jen are suspect, to be honest. I feel like there was a lot of weird calls to Jen, and a lot of things didn't add up with Jen, because, he called Jen and she was supposedly home at that time, so why would he be calling her? And then Jen got a lawyer and got all nervous because she felt like she was going to get arrested. I feel like maybe those 2 were involved and then try and framed him because, it's his ex-girlfriend. All right, so Adnan throws some of Hayes' things into a dumpster at Westview Mall, and Jay throws his shovel into a dumpster behind Value City. And I can't even take Jen's testimony seriously because she seems shady too. So if she's going to be like, oh yeah, I saw Adnan at the mall, that really doesn't technically put him there if she seems shady too. She could totally be lying about it. So Adnan drops Jay off at home, or Jen picks up Jay at the mall and takes him home. Jay changes his clothes, and he and Jen drive back to Westview Mall where he wipes the fingerprints off the shovels. And why would Jen be so willing to help him too? If somebody came to me and said, hey, I just helped someone bury somebody and I need to go get rid of my clothes and get shovels, I'd be like, hell no. Why is she so willing to help him dispose of this stuff too? Hey, Coda. So she drops Jay off, I said that. Jay and Jen drive to Super Fresh. Oh, remember Super Fresh? Where Jay throws his clothes in a dumpster. Jen testified that she drove Jay to get rid of his clothes the next day, not that night. So they can't even agree on a time when he got rid of his clothes. Jen drives Jay to Stephanie's house where he gives Stephanie her birthday presents. Jay and Jen spend the rest of the night in Kathy's apartment, and at 11, Jay gets back home for the night. Yeah, if you guys haven't listened to Serial, I highly recommend it. They do a really good job. So Asia, the girl who says that she was at the library with him, this is her letter. Dear Adnan, I hope I spelled it right. I know that you can't visitors, so I decided to write you a letter. I'm not sure if you remember talking to me in the library on January 13th, but I remember chatting with you. Throughout your actions that day, I have reason to believe in your innocence. I went to your family's house and discussed your calm manner towards them. I also called the Woodland Public Library and found that they have a surveillance system inside the building. Depending on the amount of time you spend in the library that afternoon, it might help in your defense. I really would appreciate it if you would contact me between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. or 8:45 p.m. until so-and-so. My number is blah, blah, blah. More importantly, I'm trying to reach your lawyer to schedule a possible meeting with the three of us. We aren't really close friends, but I want you to look into my eyes and tell me of your innocence. If I ever find otherwise, I will hunt you down and whip your ass. Okay, friend. It's a weird letter, though. Her affidavit. I can't go through all of this tonight. We'll have to do a part 2, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. This is the Best Buy plans. I think it just shows that there was no payphone. They couldn't find a payphone there. So here's the people map. I'll go over this and then I'll probably end it, and then we probably have to do a part 2 to go through the trial and the rest of the stuff. But Adnan, Asia is a classmate of Adnan, claims she saw him in the public library at the time of the murder supposedly took place. Her statement never made it to trial. Asia says no lawyer ever contacted her. Now, I know Adnan filed that he didn't have a good lawyer because they had never reached out to this witness and tried to get a statement from her. And then Krista is a classmate and friend of both Hai and Adnan. Remembers Adnan asking Hai for a ride the morning of January 13th, 1999. Adnan says he didn't ask for a ride. All right, so hey, Mr. S discovered Hayes' body in Lincoln Park. He was a maintenance worker at a local school, told police he was driving to work when he stopped at the park to pee and found Hayes' body. Police initially considered him a suspect. Dawn, Hayes' boyfriend at the time she disappeared, they met at Lens Crafters at the Owings Mills Mall where they both worked. I wish they would have said how old he was. I'm dying to know how old that guy was. Debbie was a classmate of Hay, told police she saw Adnan after school on January 13th around 3:30, says Hay told her she was going to see Don after school. Aisha is classmate and best friend of Hay, remembers Adnan being possessive with Hay. But she also said it could be because everything that happened had made such like a negative impact on her that it could be like skewing her view of him because it's been so long, like she doesn't remember. Becky remembers Adnan. Okay, so Becky also remembers Adnan and Hay talking about a ride after school that Hay told Adnan she couldn't drive him anywhere because she had something to do. Becky also told police she had seen Adnan after school that day around 2:45. Yasser, a friend of Adnan from the mosque, when an anonymous caller contacted police telling them to concentrate on the victim's boyfriend, the caller also said Yasser might know something about it. Calls were placed from Adnan's cell phone to Yasser's number twice on January 13th. Yeah, so the police got this like anonymous call basically saying to look into the boyfriend, and Yasser might know more. They said that it had like the police notes said it was like an Asian accent. Or all right, Rabia is friend of Adnan's family and attorney. Her youngest brother Saad is Adnan's best friend. Right, Rabia has been trying to prove Adnan's innocent since 2000. Saad, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Saad, Adnan's best friend and Rabia's brother, both Adnan and Saad were doing things young Muslim men weren't supposed to be doing in high school, like dating girls. Nisha is the high school student in Silver Spring, Maryland, and Adnan began calling her after they met on New Year's Eve. So this is like, supposedly Adnan was a bit of a player, and he was flirting with lots of girls after they had broken up, and this was one of the girls that he was talking to. He began calling her after they met on New Year's Eve, 1998. A call from his cell phone to her house was made at 3:32 p.m. the day Hay disappeared. And Adnan says he was not with his phone at the time because Jay had it, but he hasn't been able to explain who then made the call. Yeah, Jay just, he's weird to me. I just can't put my finger on it, but all right. So Stephanie is the girlfriend of Jay. The day Hay disappeared was Stephanie's birthday. Jay borrowed Adnan's car and cell phone so he could buy her a birthday present. So that's why he had Adnan's stuff. Jay, state's key witness against Adnan, said he helped Adnan bury Hay's body in Lincoln Park, graduated from Woodlawn High School a year ahead of Adnan. They smoked weed together, and they were both close to Stephanie, Jay's girlfriend. Laura was a classmate and friend of Adnan. Stephanie, Jen, and Jay. She never really believed Adnan was guilty, but she also doesn't think Jay would lie about something like that. Chris, a friend of Jay, who also went to Woodlawn High School, says Jay told him that Adnan had forced him to help bury Hay and was threatening to hurt Stephanie if Jay squealed. Which I find that hard to believe, too. Like, force him to help him bury her, and I'll hurt your girlfriend if not. Kathy is Jen's sorority sister and close friend. Testified that Jay and Adnan went to her house the night of the murder, and that Adnan, who she never met, was acting strangely. Right. Jen is a friend of Jay from high school. Testified that she saw Jay and Adnan on the night of the murder, and that Jay told her Adnan had killed Hay. Christina Gutierrez, his trial attorney, had a great reputation as a tough defense attorney, but was disbarred for mismanaging client money in 2001, a year after Adnan's trial. And then Detective Ritz and Detective McGillivray, lead homicide detectives, they interviewed Jay at least 4 times and knew that his story was changing. That just bothers me so much, that the detectives knew that the story was changing so much, they didn't do anything about it. Something just does not feel right, and I hope we do find out about it. And they're supposed to have another, they're going to have another trial, because technically they had to, free him, but they're still going to have to go through a trial, do a retrial. And we'll see if they have enough evidence now, which I don't believe that they do. I mean, they never tested anything until now. I'm not really sure what they tested. I know that it was like a shoe that it was a shoe they found DNA on. Hold on. No, I'm trying to find. Where is that coming from? Oh, I don't think I have it up. But anyway, they said it was like a shoe or something. Here we go. I read in here. DNA testing has effectively cleared the 41-year-old. He's been behind bars for 23 years. Now, they did the DNA testing results. And it excluded Adnan, who has now been formally exonerated. Syed walked free in September after a Baltimore Circuit Court judge ordered that his conviction be vacated. He had been sentenced to life in prison for the 1999 murder of Heyman Lee, his ex-girlfriend and high school classmate. She wrote that he had honored. Yeah, and they're saying that they held back exculpatory evidence of two other suspects, which, like I said, the suspects earlier, I don't believe. Hey, Melissa Jade. I don't believe that. I don't think those suspects are involved. I think, definitely Jay is. I mean, he knew where the car was. He has to be involved to some degree, but I just don't know if he did the whole thing and he's blaming it. But it is really strange. But I'm pretty sure at least one of the things they tested was her shoe and a couple different things. So, all right. Well, I will do a part 2 where I go a little more into the trial and stuff, I guess. But that's pretty much the summary, the long summary of it. Everything that happened and the timeline. It's been a long time since I've listened to this podcast, so I'm refreshing myself on it, and I'm only on the 4th episode. So I'm going to listen to it more and look into more stuff and see if I can pull up some of the court motions and everything, and we could dive a little deeper into it. But I'm going to end it here, and we'll have a part 2. Oh, and there's more documents I can go into as well. Next time we can go into the different statements and affidavit by Asia and stuff like that. But if I do it tonight, I'll just be here forever. So I'm so sad that MG is yet another person that confuses me for my alt known as Sarah. You two are one person. All right, guys. Well, I'm hopping off. Thank you for coming. Good night, everyone. Thank you, thumbs up. Good night. See ya.